Ma'am, people like you don't typically have accounts here. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the community branch across town? The bank manager's smile was ice-cold professional. Her manicured fingers drummed against the marble counter as she looked down at the impeccably dressed black woman standing before her. Dr. Amelia Richardson adjusted her navy Armani blazer and maintained eye contact. She had heard these words before, in different forms, throughout her career. But today felt different. Today, these real-life stories of discrimination were about to take an unexpected turn. The college student at the nearby ATM kept her phone camera rolling, not realizing she was capturing one of those black stories that would soon transform an entire industry. These touching stories of quiet power were about to unfold in ways no one could predict. Have you ever been judged by your appearance in a place where you actually held all the power? The digital clock above the teller windows showed 2:52 p.m. Amelia glanced at her platinum Patek Philippe watch. 8 minutes until her board meeting. I need to withdraw $50,000 for my daughter's tuition payment, she said calmly, sliding her driver's license and account documentation across the polished counter. Jessica Sterling, the branch manager, barely glanced at the documents. Her 15 years at Premier First National Bank had earned her a spotless record and a corner office. She prided herself on reading situations quickly. This amount requires additional verification, Sterling said, her voice carrying that particular tone reserved for difficult customers, especially for certain demographic profiles that might trigger our fraud prevention protocols. The words hung in the air like smoke. Amelia felt the familiar tightness in her chest, the same feeling she'd experienced in boardrooms, at country clubs, in first-class airline lounges. The assumption that she didn't belong. At the corner ATM, Emma Chen was supposed to be filming a TikTok about campus banking tips for her finance class. Instead, her phone caught something far more compelling. Her viewer count was climbing. 847, 1,203, 2,156 people watching live as discrimination unfolded in real time. I have my account number, valid identification, and authorization codes, Amelia said, her voice steady. What additional verification do you need? Sterling's smile tightened. These large cash withdrawals require managerial oversight. We need to ensure the funds aren't questionable in nature. The implication was clear. Amelia had heard it 1,000 times in different forms. The suggestion that her money, her success, her presence itself was somehow suspicious. I understand you have protocols, Amelia replied, checking her watch again. 2:54 p.m. However, I do have a time constraint. Could we expedite this process? Ma'am, these things take time. Patience is required for complex verifications. Behind the counter, Sarah Martinez, a young teller, leaned toward her colleague. Isn't she the woman from that Forbes article? She whispered. Her coworker shrugged. All these professional types look the same to me. Sterling pressed a button under her desk. Within seconds, Marcus Williams, the bank's security guard, appeared. The young black man looked uncomfortable as he approached. We have a situation with a large withdrawal request, Sterling announced, her voice carrying across the lobby. I need you to monitor while we complete our verification process. Marcus's jaw tightened. He'd seen this scene before, played out in different variations. Always the same script, always the same ending. But something about this woman seemed different. Her posture, her calm confidence, the expensive watch, the way she held herself. Ma'am, he said quietly, is there anything I can help you with? Thank you, Marcus, Amelia read his name tag. I simply need to complete a routine withdrawal. I have a meeting at 3. Emma's live stream was exploding. Comments flooded in faster than she could read them. This is so wrong. Call her out. Someone record this. Banking While Black in 2025, SMH. The viewer count hit 5,000. Emma's hands shook slightly as she held her phone steady, realizing she was documenting something significant. Sterling returned to her computer, typing slowly, deliberately. Each keystroke seemed calculated to waste time. I'm going to need to speak with my supervisor about this request. These amounts fall outside normal parameters for walk-in customers. Walk-in customers? Amelia's eyebrow raised slightly. I've banked here for 12 years. Of course, Sterling's smile was patronizing. But you understand, with today's regulatory environment, we must be extra careful with large cash transactions. Money laundering, terrorist financing, drug proceeds. The words hit like slaps, each implication more insulting than the last. Amelia felt the familiar fire building in her chest, but her expression remained serene. Her phone buzzed. Board meeting reminder. Premier First National. Conference room. A. 5 minutes. She glanced at the message, then at Sterling, then at the growing crowd of onlookers. A plan was forming. Ms. Sterling, Amelia said, reading the nameplate on the desk. In your 15 years with this institution, have you ever had a customer complaint filed against you? Sterling's confidence faltered for just a moment. I maintain the highest professional standards. I'm sure you do. Amelia's voice was silk over steel. And I'm certain you follow all protocols to the letter, including those regarding discrimination and bias in customer service. The lobby had grown quieter. Other customers were watching now, phones appearing in hands, conversations dropping to whispers. I'm not discriminating against anyone, Sterling said, her voice rising slightly. I treat all customers the same. Of course you do. Amelia opened her purse and withdrew her phone. Marcus, have you ever seen discrimination in this branch? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Company policy was clear about discussing internal matters with customers, but something in Amelia's eyes told him this was no ordinary situation. I just follow procedures, ma'am. Emma's stream now had 8,500 viewers. The comments section was a blur of outrage and support. Screenshots were being shared across social media platforms. Banking While Black was already trending. Sterling's assistant manager, Derek Thompson, emerged from his office. What seems to be the problem here? Large cash withdrawal, insufficient documentation, Sterling repeated her script. Derek looked at Amelia, then at the documents on the counter, then at the growing crowd. His discomfort was obvious. Ma'am, I apologize for any inconvenience. If you could just be patient with our security procedures. Amelia checked her watch one final time. 2:57 p.m. Perhaps, Sterling said with unmistakable smugness, you could return tomorrow with proper references. Character witnesses. Someone who can vouch for your legitimacy? The insult was delivered with surgical precision. In that moment, Amelia made her decision. It was time to show them exactly who they were dealing with. The crowd around the banking counter had grown larger. What started as casual curiosity had transformed into something more charged. Customers pulled out phones, some pretending to check messages while actually recording the unfolding drama. Emma's livestream viewer count exploded past 12,000. The comments were coming so fast, they appeared as a blur of text across her screen. Someone call the news. This lady is handling this like a boss. Why is this still happening in 2025? Get their names and blast them online. At 2:58 p.m., Amelia stood perfectly still, her hands clasped in front of her. The marble floor beneath her feet had witnessed thousands of transactions. But nothing quite like this. Miss Sterling, she said, her voice carrying clearly across the lobby, I want to be absolutely certain I understand your position. You're refusing to process a legitimate withdrawal from my account because you question the source of my funds? Sterling's face flushed. The attention was making her defensive, and defensive people make mistakes. I'm not refusing anything. I'm following bank policy regarding suspicious transactions. Suspicious? Based on what criteria? Large cash amounts, unusual withdrawal patterns. Sterling's voice trailed off as she realized she was walking into a trap. What's unusual about my withdrawal pattern? Please be specific. Derek Thompson stepped closer, sensing danger. His 15 years in banking had taught him to recognize legal landmines. This conversation was becoming one. Ladies, perhaps we could continue this discussion in my office, privately. I prefer transparency, Amelia replied. Public institutions should operate with public accountability. Sarah Martinez whispered urgently to another teller. Check the executive directory. I swear I've seen her picture somewhere. But before anyone could act on that suggestion, Sterling doubled down on her mistake. Look, some people need to learn their place. This is a prestigious institution with standards to maintain. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Even Derek winced. Marcus closed his eyes briefly, knowing exactly what Sterling had just done. Emma's phone nearly slipped from her hands. The comments section exploded. Did she just say what? Oh, hell no. This is about to go viral. Someone needs to check this manager. The live stream hit 15,000 viewers. Local news Twitter accounts were already picking up the story. Screenshots were being shared faster than Emma could process. Amelia's composure never wavered. If anything, she seemed to grow calmer as the situation escalated. My place, she repeated thoughtfully. And where exactly do you believe my place to be, Ms. Sterling? Sterling realized her mistake too late. The lobby had gone dead silent, except for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the occasional ping of notification sounds from the growing audience of phone cameras. I didn't mean... That's not what I... Sterling stammered. Please, continue. I'm genuinely curious about your assessment of my place in this institution. Derek stepped forward quickly. He paused, suddenly realizing he didn't know the customer's name. Richardson, Amelia supplied helpfully. Dr. Richardson, I apologize profusely for any misunderstanding. Let's resolve this immediately. But Sterling, perhaps sensing her authority being undermined, pushed forward. Derek, I'm handling this situation. We can't just bend policies because someone makes a scene. A scene? Amelia's voice carried a note of genuine curiosity. Is requesting my own money from my own account considered making a scene? Marcus shifted his weight from foot to foot. He'd been a security guard for 3 years, had seen his share of difficult situations. But something about this felt different. Wrong. The customer wasn't aggressive or demanding. She was simply present. Powerfully, undeniably present. Amelia's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it briefly. The caller ID showed Patricia Hendricks, Chief Operating Officer. She declined the call, then declined another from James Morrison, Board Chair. Sterling noticed the calls, noticed the expensive phone, the way Amelia carried herself. For the first time, doubt crept into her expression. Who keeps calling you? Sterling asked, trying to regain control of the narrative. Colleagues wondering where I am. Amelia's smile was enigmatic. I mentioned I had a brief errand before our meeting. The lobby's atmosphere had shifted. What began as routine discrimination was transforming into something else entirely. The other customers sensed it. The staff sensed it. Even Sterling was beginning to sense it. Emma's viewer count approached 20,000. The story was spreading beyond her initial audience. Premier First National was beginning to trend. Screenshots of Sterling's face were being shared with increasingly angry commentary. Ma'am? Derek tried again. What can we do to resolve this quickly? Amelia checked her watch. 2:59 p.m. Actually, she said, reaching into her purse, I think it's time to clarify something. She withdrew her wallet, but instead of producing another form of identification, she pulled out a keycard, the kind used for executive elevator access. Marcus's eyes widened. He recognized that card type. Only the highest-level executives had them. "Miss Sterling," Amelia said conversationally, "in your 15 years with Premier First National, have you ever attended the annual shareholder meeting?" What? Why would I attend that? Curiosity, perhaps? Professional development? It's quite informative. They always show the executive leadership photos. Sterling's confidence was evaporating. Something in Amelia's tone, in her questions, was setting off alarm bells. Sarah Martinez had stopped pretending to work. She was openly staring now, her computer screen forgotten. "I know I've seen her somewhere," she muttered. Amelia's phone rang again. This time, she answered. "Patricia?" "Yes, I'm still downstairs." "No, just handling a small customer service matter. Could you come down for a moment? I think we need to discuss branch protocols." She hung up and smiled at Sterling. "My colleague will be joining us shortly." Derek's face had gone pale. "Which colleague?" "Patricia Hendricks. Perhaps you know her? Chief Operating Officer." The color drained from Sterling's face completely. Even the customers in the lobby recognized that name from the business news. Marcus stepped closer to Amelia. "Ma'am, are you?" Amelia held up a gentle hand. "Let's wait for Patricia. She'll want to hear Ms. Sterling's explanation about customer demographics and suspicious transaction patterns." Sterling's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Derek was frantically trying to process what was happening. Emma's live stream was approaching 25,000 viewers. The comments section was pure chaos. "Who is she who I think she is? Check the Premier First National website. Someone Google Dr. Richardson. This manager is done." The elevator at the far end of the lobby chimed softly. The doors opened. Patricia Hendricks, Chief Operating Officer of Premier First National Bank, stepped out. She was a tall woman in her 50s, with silver hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. She looked around the lobby, taking in the crowd, the phones, the tension crackling in the air like electricity before a storm. Her eyes found Amelia immediately. "Dr. Richardson," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the marble expanse. "Is there a problem?" The lobby fell into complete silence. Even the air conditioning seemed to pause. Emma's phone captured every detail as 30,000 viewers held their collective breath. Sterling's face cycled through confusion, recognition, and dawning horror in the span of 3 seconds. "Patricia," Amelia said calmly, "I was just trying to make a routine withdrawal when Ms. Sterling here expressed some concerns about my account." Patricia Hendricks' expression hardened as she took in the scene. The crowd of customers with phones, the live stream comments visible on screens, the obvious tension radiating from her staff. "What kind of concerns?" Patricia asked, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd spent 25 years climbing corporate hierarchies. Sterling opened and closed her mouth several times before finding her voice. There was a large withdrawal request. Standard protocols. $50,000, Amelia supplied helpfully. For my daughter's tuition. I have all the required documentation." Patricia's eyes swept over the papers on the counter, then fixed on Sterling with laser intensity. "And the problem was?" "Large cash amounts require additional verification," Derek jumped in, trying to protect his subordinate, "especially when there might be irregular patterns." "Irregular patterns?" Patricia's voice could have cut glass. "In Dr. Richardson's account," the title hit the room like a thunderclap. Dr. Richardson. Not Miss, not Ma'am. Doctor. Marcus stepped back slightly, finally understanding who he was looking at. Sarah Martinez had her hand over her mouth, staring in shock. The other customers were furiously Googling on their phones. Emma's viewer count hit 40,000. The comments were scrolling too fast to read, but the sentiment was clear. This was about to become legendary. "I think," Sterling said weakly, "there may have been a misunderstanding." "Oh, I think the understanding is quite clear," Amelia replied. "You told me that people like me don't typically have accounts here, that I should be more comfortable at the community branch. You questioned whether my funds were legitimate, suggested they might be proceeds from money laundering, terrorism, or drug dealing." Each word was delivered with surgical precision. Patricia's face grew darker with every sentence. "You also mentioned," Amelia continued, "that some people need to learn their place, that this is a prestigious institution with standards to maintain." "I never said," Sterling began. Actually, Emma called out from across the lobby, her voice shaking with excitement. "I have it all on video. 28,000 people watching live, plus everyone who screen recorded it." Patricia closed her eyes briefly. In the age of social media, this was a public relations nightmare that would reach the board within hours. "Miss Sterling," Patricia said, her voice deadly quiet, "are you aware of who you've been speaking to?" Sterling looked desperately between Patricia and Amelia, the truth finally beginning to penetrate her consciousness. Amelia reached into her purse and withdrew her corporate identification badge. She held it up so everyone in the lobby could see. Dr. Amelia Richardson, Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of the Board, Premier First National Bank. The silence that followed was deafening. Derek Thompson made a sound like air being let out of a balloon. Marcus took off his security cap and ran his hand through his hair. Sarah Martinez actually gasped, audibly. Sterling's knees visibly buckled. She gripped the counter for support as the full magnitude of what she had done crashed over her. Emma's live stream exploded. 50,000 viewers and climbing. The comments section was pure pandemonium. "The CEO, the actual CEO. She owns the bank." This manager just discriminated against her own boss. "Career suicide in real time. This is the best thing I've ever seen." Screenshots were flooding Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. News outlets were already picking up the story. "CEO Dead Men Service" was trending nationwide. "Oh my God," Sterling whispered, the color completely gone from her face. "Oh my God, I didn't know." "You didn't know," Amelia repeated thoughtfully. "But you knew enough to make assumptions about my character, my legitimacy, my place in this institution. You knew enough to suggest I might be a criminal." Patricia stepped forward. "Dr. Richardson, I am profoundly sorry." "Patricia, this isn't your fault. This is a teachable moment." Amelia's voice remained calm, controlled. "Ms. Sterling, what you didn't know is that today's board meeting includes a comprehensive review of customer service metrics across all branches." Sterling's face went from white to green. "We've been tracking complaint patterns, analyzing customer feedback, reviewing security footage. Your branch has some interesting statistics." Amelia turned to address the lobby full of witnesses, speaking clearly for Emma's live stream audience. "In the past 6 months, this branch has received 17 formal discrimination complaints. That's 300% higher than our company average. Customer satisfaction scores are 23% below target. We've had $2.3 million in account closures directly attributed to poor service experiences." The numbers hit like physical blows. Derek was frantically calculating whether his own job was in jeopardy. Marcus was wondering if he should update his resume. "But here's what's most interesting," Amelia continued. 86% of those complaints came from customers of color. The pattern is so pronounced that our legal department flagged it for federal review. Sterling was hyperventilating. "I need to sit down." "You'll have plenty of time to sit," Patricia said coldly. Dr. Richardson, what would you like me to do? Amelia checked her watch. 3:02 p.m. The board meeting had officially started without her. First, let's complete my transaction. $50,000, as originally requested. Sarah Martinez practically flew to process the withdrawal. Her hands shook as she counted out the money, triple-checking every bill. Second, Amelia continued, I think we need to have an immediate discussion about branch management and customer service protocols. She turned to Emma, who was still live streaming to an audience that had grown to 65,000 viewers. Young lady, thank you for documenting this interaction. This is exactly why transparency in business practices is so important. Emma nodded enthusiastically, still in shock at what she had witnessed. Miss Sterling? Amelia's voice was gentle but firm. You have a choice to make. We can handle this privately, or we can let HR conduct a full investigation while this video continues to circulate online. Sterling looked around the lobby at the sea of phones, at the live stream still broadcasting her humiliation to tens of thousands of people, at her colleagues who couldn't meet her eyes. What are you offering? A conversation, upstairs, right now. Patricia nodded toward the elevators. Conference room A is ready. As the group began moving toward the elevators, Marcus approached Amelia hesitantly. Dr. Richardson, ma'am, I just want to say, I'm sorry. I should have spoken up. Amelia stopped and looked at the young man. Marcus, what did you see here today? I saw someone being treated unfairly because of how they looked. And what did you do about it? Marcus's shoulders sagged. Nothing. I followed orders. Next time? Marcus straightened. Next time, I'll remember that doing the right thing is more important than following bad orders. Amelia smiled. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. The elevator arrived. As the doors opened, Amelia turned back to the lobby full of witnesses. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. This has been an educational experience for everyone involved. The doors closed, carrying the CEO, the COO, and the branch manager toward a conversation that would change everything. Emma finally stopped her live stream after 2 hours and 100,000 viewers. But the story was just beginning. Conference Room A occupied the northeast corner of the 47th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan's financial district. The polished mahogany table could seat 20 executives, but today only 4 people sat around its expansive surface. Amelia took her customary seat at the head of the table. Patricia sat to her right, a legal pad already filled with notes. Sterling sat across from them, looking small and vulnerable in the executive chair that seemed to dwarf her. Derek Thompson had been dismissed to handle the lobby situation and coordinate with media relations. Before we begin, Amelia said, opening her laptop, I want you to understand the scope of what happened downstairs. She turned the screen towards Sterling. The social media metrics were staggering. Emma's live stream reached 127,000 concurrent viewers at its peak. The video has been shared 45,000 times in the past hour. CEO denied service is trending in 12 countries. Our stock price has dropped 2.3% since the story broke. Sterling stared at the numbers in horror. I had no idea it would go viral, Patricia interjected. In 2025, everything goes viral. That's why we train our staff on customer service excellence and bias prevention. Amelia pulled up another document. Miss Sterling, according to HR records, you've completed our annual sensitivity training 4 times. You've signed our non-discrimination policy acknowledgement. You've attended 3 workshops on unconscious bias. Sterling nodded miserably. So help me understand, Amelia continued, how someone with your training and experience could make the decisions you made today. The question hung in the air. Sterling struggled to find an answer that wouldn't damn her further. I thought I mean, it seemed like... She started, then stopped. How could she explain 15 years of accumulated prejudice? How could she justify the assumptions that felt so natural they'd become automatic? Patricia consulted her notes. Let's review the specific language you used. Quote, "People like you don't typically have accounts here." What did you mean by people like you? Sterling's face flushed. I didn't mean anything racial. Then what did you mean? Space as silent. Amelia opened another file. Our security system records all transactions and interactions. We have audio and video of everything that happened. Would you like me to play it back? No, Sterling whispered. Please. No. Then let's discuss the business impact. Amelia's fingers moved across her keyboard, bringing up spreadsheets and charts. Your branch has the highest complaint rate in our system. 23% customer complaint rate versus an 8% company average. The numbers appeared on the room's large monitor. Charts and graphs painted a damning picture of systematic service failures. Customer retention in your branch, 67%. Company average, 89%. Revenue per customer, $4,200.00. Company average, $6,800.00. Customer lifetime value, $12,000.00. Each statistic landed like a physical blow. Sterling had known her numbers weren't great, but seeing them laid out like this was devastating. Now let's look at the demographic breakdown, Patricia said, taking over the presentation. Complaint patterns show a clear correlation with customer race and ethnicity. Minority customers are 340% more likely to report negative experiences at your branch. Sterling's career was disintegrating in real time, documented by data that couldn't be argued with or explained away. The legal exposure is significant, Patricia continued. 17 formal discrimination complaints in 6 months. Our legal department estimates potential liability at $3,200,000.00 if these cases go to litigation. Amelia leaned forward. But here's what concerns me most. This isn't about one bad day or one poor decision. This is about a pattern of behavior that reflects systematic bias. She pulled up another document. Federal banking regulations are clear about discriminatory practices. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act, the Fair Housing Act, the Civil Rights Act, Section 1981. Violations can result in federal prosecution, not just civil liability. Sterling was visibly trembling now. What happens to me? That depends, Amelia said, on whether you understand the gravity of what occurred and whether you're committed to change. She stood and walked to the windows, looking out at the city below. Jessica, you humiliated a customer based on her race. You questioned her legitimacy, suggested she might be a criminal, told her she didn't belong in our institution. You did this in front of witnesses, in front of a live stream audience of over 100,000 people. Sterling began crying quietly. But more than that, Amelia continued, you revealed a mindset that has been poisoning customer relationships for years. The data shows this wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the first time you got caught on camera. Patricia placed a folder on the table. These are your options. Option 1. Immediate termination for cause. No severance, no neutral reference. The incident goes on your permanent record, and we cooperate fully with any discrimination lawsuits filed against you personally. Sterling's breathing became labored. Option 2. Resignation with a neutral reference, conditional on your participation in a comprehensive bias remediation program and your cooperation with our internal review of other potential incidents. Option 3, Amelia said, returning to her seat, is the one I prefer. You stay, but everything changes. Sterling looked up through her tears. Stay? You undergo intensive retraining. You work directly with our diversity and inclusion team. You participate in community outreach programs. You help us redesign our customer service protocols to prevent this from ever happening again. The offer was unexpected. Sterling had assumed her career was over. Why would you give me that chance? Amelia's expression softened slightly. Because firing you doesn't solve the systematic problem. It just moves it somewhere else. I'd rather transform the behavior than simply punish it. Patricia looked skeptical. The board won't like this approach. The public relations damage. The board will like the results, Amelia said firmly. We're going to turn this crisis into an opportunity for real change. She turned back to Sterling. But make no mistake, this is your last chance. One more complaint, one more incident, one more suggestion that any customer doesn't belong in our institution, and you're gone. Permanently. Sterling nodded frantically. Yes, I understand. Thank you for... Don't thank me yet. Earn it. Amelia returned to her laptop. Here's what happens immediately. You'll be suspended for 2 weeks without pay while we conduct a full review. You'll complete 40 hours of bias training with external consultants. You'll participate in community forums where you'll listen to customers share their experiences with discrimination. Patricia was taking notes rapidly. What about the media situation? We're going to own it, Amelia said. Full transparency. We'll acknowledge the problem, outline our response, and demonstrate our commitment to change. This becomes a case study in corporate accountability. She pulled up a new document. We're implementing the Richardson Protocol company-wide. Every customer interaction will be monitored for bias indicators. We're installing AI-powered analysis systems to flag problematic language patterns. We're creating a direct escalation path to executive leadership for discrimination complaints. Sterling listened in amazement as her humiliation was transformed into a catalyst for systematic reform. We're also establishing a $500,000 zero-cents fund for financial literacy programs in underserved communities. We're partnering with historically black colleges and universities for recruitment. We're requiring bias testing for all management positions. Patricia was already calculating the costs and logistics. The board meeting is about to get very interesting, Amelia finished. Jessica, do you accept these terms? Sterling didn't hesitate. Yes, absolutely yes. Then let's go save your career and transform this company. As they prepared to leave the conference room, Amelia's phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Dr. Richardson, thank you for handling this with such grace. You've inspired a generation of young women. The video now has 2 million views. Amelia smiled and showed the message to Patricia. 2 million people just watch corporate leadership in action. Let's make sure they see what real change looks like. The elevator doors opened to reveal a lobby full of reporters, cameras, and customers who had heard about the incident. It was time for the next phase of the transformation. Sterling took a deep breath. Her humiliation was about to become public, but so was her redemption. The real work was just beginning. 6 weeks later, Premier First National Bank looked different. Not just physically, though the new customer service signage was impossible to miss. The change ran deeper, into the very culture of the institution. Emma Chen sat in the same lobby where she'd accidentally captured history, but now she was there intentionally. Her finance professor had assigned the Premier First National case study, and she was documenting the transformation for her senior thesis. The Richardson Protocol had become industry standard. Every customer interaction was monitored by AI systems that flagged potentially discriminatory language. Dashboard displays in every branch showed real-time customer satisfaction scores, broken down by demographic categories. Marcus Williams, the former security guard, now wore a different uniform. His new title was Director of Customer Experience, and his job was to ensure every person entering the bank felt welcomed and valued. The training was intense, he told Emma during their interview. 40 hours of workshops on unconscious bias, cultural competency, customer psychology. But it changed how I see everything. Sarah Martinez had been promoted to branch manager after Derek Thompson's quiet resignation. She'd spent 3 weeks in specialized training, learning to recognize and interrupt bias patterns in real-time customer service situations. We have monthly community forums now, Sarah explained. Customers come in and share their experiences, both positive and negative. It keeps us accountable. The forum meetings were held in the same conference room where Jessica Sterling had faced her career-defining choice 6 weeks earlier. Sterling herself attended every session, listening to story after story of discrimination, microaggressions, and systemic bias in financial services. The hardest part, Sterling admitted to Emma, was realizing how many times I'd made people feel the way I made Dr. Richardson feel, how many customers I'd lost, how many relationships I'd damaged, how many people I'd made feel unwelcome in their own bank. The transformation hadn't been easy. Sterling's 2-week suspension had stretched into a month as she completed intensive bias remediation training. She'd read books, attended workshops, participated in role-playing exercises where she experienced discrimination from the other side. They made me spend a day trying to get service at businesses where I was the minority, she recalled. Car dealerships in predominantly black neighborhoods, community banks in Latino areas. I felt what it was like to be looked at with suspicion, to have my legitimacy questioned. The experience had been humiliating but transformative. For the first time, Sterling understood the weight of assumptions, the damage of bias, the power differential in every customer interaction. Dr. Amelia Richardson's office had become a destination for executives from other financial institutions seeking to understand the Premier model. The company's stock price had recovered and then soared, driven by improved customer satisfaction scores and positive media coverage of their transformation initiative. We've received over 3,000 applications for new accounts since the incident, Patricia Hendricks reported during their weekly leadership meeting. Customer retention is up 23%. Revenue per customer has increased 31%. Most importantly, discrimination complaints have dropped to 0 across all branches. The success wasn't just financial. Premier First National had become a case study in crisis management and cultural transformation. Harvard Business School was developing a curriculum around their approach. Other banks were implementing similar protocols. Emma's original TikTok video had been viewed 15 million times. She'd been interviewed by major news networks, invited to speak at business conferences, and offered internships at top financial firms. But she'd chosen to stay at Premier First National for her summer internship, working directly with the customer experience team. Dr. Richardson showed me what real leadership looks like, Emma explained to her documentary camera. She could have destroyed Jessica Sterling's career, could have made an example of her. Instead, she chose transformation over revenge. The community impact had been equally significant. The $500,000 0 cents financial literacy fund had expanded to $2 million 0 cents, supporting programs at 12 universities and 30 community centers. High school students from underserved areas were participating in banking internships. Financial education workshops were being held in community centers across the city. Jessica Sterling had become an unlikely spokesperson for the transformation. Her story of recognition, redemption, and reform resonated with audiences across the country. She'd spoken at diversity conferences, participated in bias training programs at other companies, and co-authored an article for Harvard Business Review titled, "When Bias Becomes Visible: A Manager's Journey from Discrimination to Transformation." "I can't undo what I did," Sterling said during a panel discussion at the National Banking Association conference, "but I can use my experience to help others recognize their own biases before they cause harm." The panel, moderated by Dr. Richardson herself, featured Sterling alongside other executives who had implemented similar transformation programs. The discussion was frank, Uncomfortable at times, but ultimately hopeful. Change is possible, Dr. Richardson told the audience of 2,000 banking professionals. But it requires acknowledging uncomfortable truths about our industry, our institutions, and ourselves. The premier First National model was being replicated across the financial sector. The Federal Reserve had issued new guidance incorporating elements of the Richardson Protocol. State banking commissioners were requiring bias training for all customer-facing employees. Back in the lobby where it all began, a new plaque hung near the customer service counter. Every customer deserves dignity, respect, and equal treatment. This commitment is not negotiable. Below it, a QR code linked to a real-time customer feedback system. Complaints went directly to executive leadership within minutes. Customer satisfaction scores were displayed publicly on digital boards, updated hourly. Marcus Williams often stood near that plaque, remembering the day he'd chosen silence over action. "I learned that neutrality in the face of discrimination is complicity," he told new employee orientation groups. "Our job isn't just to provide banking services. It's to ensure every person who walks through that door feels valued and respected." The transformation had rippled outward beyond Premier First National. Other businesses in the building had implemented similar protocols. The local Chamber of Commerce had adopted bias training requirements for member organizations. Emma's video had sparked a broader conversation about discrimination in service industries. Dr. Richardson's daughter had used the tuition money to enroll in a business ethics program, inspired by her mother's handling of the crisis. "She showed me that true power isn't about punishment," the younger Richardson wrote in her college application essay. "It's about using privilege to create positive change." The company's annual shareholder meeting, 6 months after the incident, was standing room only. Dr. Richardson's presentation on cultural transformation and its business impact received a 5-minute standing ovation. "We didn't just change our policies," she told the shareholders. "We changed our purpose. We're not just a bank anymore. We're a catalyst for equity in financial services." The numbers supported her vision. Customer acquisition was up 67%. Employee satisfaction had reached all-time highs. The company had been recognized as Employer of the Year by 3 diversity organizations. But perhaps the most meaningful change was invisible to metrics and measurements. It lived in the interactions between staff and customers, in the assumptions that were no longer made, in the questions that were no longer asked. Jessica Sterling, reviewing her performance evaluation 6 months after the incident, had achieved scores she'd never reached in 15 years of banking. Her customer satisfaction rating was 97%. Her bias incident reports, 0. "I'm a different person than I was that day," she reflected. "Not because I was punished, but because I was challenged to grow." The branch's walls now displayed photos from community events, financial literacy graduations, and diversity celebrations. Where once there had been sterile corporate messaging, now there were faces, customers, employees, community members, representing the full spectrum of humanity the bank served. Emma Chen's senior thesis, titled "From Viral Discrimination to Systematic Reform, a Case Study in Corporate Transformation," would go on to win the university's award for social impact research. But more importantly, it documented a moment when accountability met opportunity, creating lasting change. 1 year later, Dr. Amelia Richardson stood before a packed auditorium at the International Conference on Business Ethics. The audience included CEOs, diversity officers, civil rights leaders, and students from around the world. "When I walked into my own bank that Tuesday afternoon, I never imagined that 7 minutes of discrimination would spark a year of transformation," she began. "But that's the power of visibility, accountability, and choosing reform over revenge." The conference had been organized around the premier model, now studied in business schools globally. Companies across industries were implementing similar protocols, training programs, and accountability measures. Emma Chen, now a graduate student and Premier First National's Director of Digital Innovation, had documented the entire transformation process. Her follow-up videos had garnered over 50 million views combined, sparking conversations about discrimination, privilege, and corporate responsibility worldwide. These real-life stories matter because they show us that change is possible, Emma said during her own presentation. When we make bias visible, when we hold institutions accountable, when we choose transformation over punishment, we can create lasting impact. The Premier First National story had become part of a larger movement. The hashtag transformation, not termination, had inspired similar approaches to addressing workplace bias. Companies were learning to see discrimination incidents not as public relations disasters to be minimized, but as opportunities for genuine cultural change. Jessica Sterling had been promoted to Regional Diversity Officer, overseeing bias prevention programs across 12 branches. Her transformation story had become required viewing for new manager training programs throughout the financial industry. "I went from being the face of discrimination to being an advocate for inclusion," Sterling shared during her TED Talk, which had been viewed 8 million times. That journey was only possible because leadership chose to invest in redemption rather than simply impose punishment. The ripple effects continued expanding. Marcus Williams had launched a nonprofit organization training security professionals on bias recognition and intervention. Sarah Martinez was pursuing an MBA with a focus on inclusive leadership. Derek Thompson had found new purpose as a diversity consultant, helping other organizations navigate their own transformation journeys. The Federal Reserve had mandated bias training for all banking professionals, directly citing the Premier First National model. 17 states had passed legislation requiring similar protocols in financial institutions. International banking organizations were adapting the framework for different cultural contexts. Dr. Richardson's leadership approach had redefined crisis management in the corporate world. When faced with discrimination, leaders have a choice, she often said in her speaking engagements. We can focus on damage control, or we can embrace the opportunity for genuine transformation. The company's success had been recognized with numerous awards, but the most meaningful recognition came from customers whose lives had been changed by the new approach to service. Letters poured in from community members who felt truly welcomed for the first time, from employees who found purpose in their work, from other business leaders inspired to examine their own practices. These touching stories of personal and professional transformation demonstrated that when institutions choose accountability over defensiveness, remarkable change becomes possible. The Black stories of discrimination that once felt hopeless now carried the promise of systemic reform. As Dr. Richardson concluded her conference presentation, she issued a challenge to the audience. Every leader will face moments that reveal who they truly are. When bias becomes visible in your organization, you can choose silence, punishment, or transformation. Choose transformation. Choose to see crisis as opportunity. Choose to build bridges instead of walls. The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes, the same amount of time that had elapsed between discrimination and transformation in a Manhattan bank lobby 1 year earlier. Have you witnessed discrimination in your workplace or community? Share your story in the comments below. Together, we can continue building a world where everyone feels valued and respected. Subscribe for more stories of quiet power creating lasting change. Share this video with someone who needs to see that transformation is always possible.